Are they all from this other dimension where the Jinns exist? Or are the Jinn just saying that to get these power bangles to get more power? And these bands were here to trap them. My mind immediately goes like, all right, if these bands are here to trap them, and yes, I'm using my genie logic from Aladdin, deal with it. Like Jafar had to get trapped. You remember that scene? Of course you remember that scene, right?
You remember that scene because of Jasmine. That's the only reason you remember that scene, by the way.
One of them.
Calling you out.
But that gets my mind thinking. I'm like, okay, if we're setting up another like extra dimensional or like magical kind of villain and foe, my mind goes to like, all right, this Midnight Suns team that they're building up in the backhand, maybe this is something that bled over, and that's why they have to get creative, because they're gonna be like, okay, the Jinn were here, this were here, vampires were here. There's so many different things popping up that are magical and of the occult. We have to have a team who specializes in handling this. I don't think that they're gonna combine with Miss Marvel or have any introductions. I think this is just planting a seed for a future of a team buildup.
Oh, I'm thinking at the moment personally, this is more of a hint towards the X-Men. This is way more of a hint towards that, and I'll tell you why. Because
tell me why.
The clandestines in the comics, they had a kind of secretive small run in the 90s where they were popping up in books. And the clandestines are kind of this small supervillain team organization that's in the shadows throughout time.
Yeah.
Right? It's like an Illuminati thing or something. Throughout all of time, there are different members with different powers and different subsets. And Jinn in the comics is an actual female character. So it's an actual person
that is
who
also true.
is a supervillain. And also their powers form in adolescence. They grow, and by the time they hit adolescence, some of their powers start to activate depending on who's a part of this team. And obviously that reminded me of the X-Men, where your mutant genes were activated. You know, you were born with this X gene.
I like this.
By the time you hit puberty and adolescence, that's when they start to show. So I was like, oh, I wonder if this is a little hint of the future. And the other hint is, I wonder if this connects to Shang-Chi at all, because in the tomb where they find these this bracelet, this band, you look down, there's an overhead shot, and the 10 ring symbol is in the floor.
Ooh,
so
that's some maybe.
And we know this kind of has a similar power set, right? Where obviously the rings can float out and they have this cosmic kind of energy that flows within your body. We know from the last episode, Bruno said it awakened her power that was already in her, right? The bracelet reacted to something already in her. It wasn't just her mind controlling it. So there's some connection to this force. So I wonder how those are going to connect. And I would love to see Shang-Chi and Katie talk with like Bruno and Kamala Khan all day.
I think it'd be a lot of fun. I like how our mindsets went to two different places. You were more focused on like the individual and their group thing, and I'm looking more at like the bigger species thing. I think that was just cool to see where the way we both took that.
Interpretations, people.
Yeah, going to the X-Men theory, which I like that. And it does kind of seem like, all right, these magical objects, one, are a problem. And again, that's I'm like, oh, more evidence of a magical team. But like going into
magic,
like we said, it awoken the powers into her, and like more of this kind of stuff is happening. Like Shang-Chi with the rings, awoken maybe different kind of powers in her, and maybe the mutants are just going to come naturally in our world. And instead of like, oh, they have to come in here somehow, like no, it's just going to happen naturally, and they're going to be like one of the main teams that we're going to have to deal with. And we're just so focused on multi-dimensional stuff like that. I think it's happening naturally, and we're just not aware of it. I think that's something we have to pay attention to.